Hey, it's Drybear. We're just a few days away from the release of Stalker 2, over a decade in the waiting for this game to come out, and in response to all of the discussions going on around the game, the developer has elected to be answering a lot more Q&A on their official Discord. So let's just roll through as many questions as we can to get some information on Stalker 2's release. The first question is, will NPC squads roam freely through the zone, or will they be stationary? This is kind of an interesting question because I think almost all of the Stalker games had free roaming for most of the NPCs. Now, a lot of them were kind of built in encampments, like the Freedom Boys or the Duty Boys, or even the military would just stay at their base. They would refill or reinforce, but there were also roaming squads that would go around the time, especially bandits. Bandits were basically almost always roaming in all three of the Stalker games, but they respond with, they can roam the zone if they feel like it. The next question is, will we be able to sit down in certain locations for immersion's sake? For example, at a bar and have a pint with your fellow stalkers like shown in most recent video. Yes, we will be able to sit down in certain locations for immersion's sake. They also show off some of their campfire aesthetics and some of their guitar themes in the pre-order bonus, so we'll probably be able to just hang out with our broskies in many locations. The next question is, will there be Easter eggs? And the simple one-word answer is yes. Hopefully there's a lot of references to the previous games, things that hardcore fans and new players alike can appreciate and enjoy just by finding and discovering, and this is also going to be the biggest Stalker yet. They've touted how big the map actually is and how wide and sprawling it actually is, with so much exploration to enjoy, and also a lot of ways for the factions and roaming characters to interact with each other in different spaces. Next question is, will we be able to interact with the world much, turning lights and candles on or off, turning the radio on and off? And they mentioned that some things will be interactable. This wasn't really the case in most Stalkers. You would obviously be able to break crates for loot. You would be able to climb up ladders and go down ladders, but there wasn't really a whole lot of opening and closing doors unless you were inside of a lab or a vault, and there wasn't a whole lot of turning lights on and off or interact with objects, and it's probably going to be the case here with maybe some expansions to that. They mentioned that some things will be interactable in the world, which is probably going to be more so than any other Stalker before. Will loot in stashes and containers, I remember a refrigerator being opened, be randomized between playthroughs, or is it all preset loot? And the answer is some is set, most are randomized. And I think there's going to be set locations. This was true in the other Stalkers as well, like specific weapons might show up in a specific spot so you know you can go there and get it. But for the most part, a lot of the loot that's dropped on enemies that you take down, mutants that do drop loot, they will drop loot, are randomized, and also a lot of the boxes, loot boxes, crates, and everything is all randomized, so you don't really know what you're going to get when it comes to that. Will we be getting a release time map graph before launch? And the answer is yes, soon. As far as I can tell, this hasn't been released yet, but this is very important for global simultaneous releases to see in which region, in which zone, at what time is the game going to be available. And they have also mentioned that this game does not have a preload, which means you're going to have to wait until it's fully released before you'll be able to preload the game and gain access to it. So it's very important that they do this sooner rather than later, hopefully today or tomorrow, to give us that timeline. Everyone wants to know when the review embargo lifts. Please tell us. And they answered with, it is a surprise. Oh my God. So they actually just, I'm guessing the embargo will lift the day it launches. There's definitely a lot of controversy now around whether the embargo is a good thing or a bad thing. Obviously, from a developer's perspective, you don't want people to misrepresent your game early because it can negatively impact your sales and people enjoying the game. They probably have a hardcore enough fan base that they can do this without an embargo super tight, but also there's a risk that if you have the embargo, everyone's going to kind of squint their eyes at it and say, okay, this is kind of sus. Why is there an embargo for this game? Why won't you let people talk about it until it launches? And it says that it is a surprise, which means it's probably going to be the day of. We might be surprised maybe tomorrow or on Tuesday we'll see the embargo lift and we'll have something to talk about before the game launches. But as of right now, it's pretty much launching in a couple days anyway, and the embargo for the people that have gotten early access to the game has not lifted at all, and they say it's a surprise at this point. A couple questions on this one. How often will we see normal emissions? And they say sometimes. How does an emission chance the environment and maybe the playthrough? And they say it kills things and sky goes red. You'll need to stay in the safe zone. So they introduced emissions with clear sky, and they were very disruptful and very destructive as well. So it's going to have some major impacts with this as well. And lastly, will there be psi emissions? And they respond with NDA. So There's still like some of these questions are getting answered, some of them definitely aren't. Our personal stash is working like, let's call it Ender chests in MC. Like personal space has every item we put in it, and we can access it in every safe zone, or the items will only be in those specific personal stashes where we drop them off. This is a third different example to describe how our stashes work. I guess they work like Ender chests. So I'm using Minecraft to have this, but it looks like we will be able to use it as a stash, like a storage stash that we can access in any major stash location to be able to hold on to items that we don't want to carry with us that overburden us with weight. Which they flat out just confirm in this question was saying, will the safe zone stashes be connected? Yes. So you'll be able to store items in a safe zone stash and then go to a different safe zone and access those same items in a different safe zone. This is a pretty big one for a lot of people, especially in 2024 with the advent of yellow paint, white paint, or lit up markers. They ask, will there be an option to turn off yellow guide markings for walls, ladders that lead to objectives? And the answer is yes. And honestly, I think more developers should do this in their games. Not only should they have the option to disable the guide markers in the world, like in world space that tell you where to go or where objects are that are interactable, but I think it would be great too, because there's a very big epidemic now in modern games where they will have audio lines that tell you exactly what you need to do. So like in RPG games or action games, you'll have the characters you're traveling with talk to you and tell you how to solve the puzzle, where to go, what you're doing next. Sometimes those can be a little bit too hand-holdy, and I would love it if they would have an option in the option menu to disable those, so you can just kind of run your head against the brick wall and figure it out yourself. But it looks like they will have an option in settings to disable the presentation of yellow paint to make the world feel a lot more open and realistic, but also have that same kind of punishing, brutal Stalker vibe where you're on your own, you got to figure it out. The great question here is that when you buy the higher editions of the game or they get the pre-order bonuses, there are items inside of those packages that you will get in game, like suits, weapons, things like that. So they ask, how will we get the weapon? I hope there will not be in our backpack at the start of the game. There's definitely some, questions around games like these, if you should start with strong weapons or gear, and if that's going to be available right away. And they respond with, not at the start. You will get a side quest or stashed coordinates you will need to loot. So if you don't want the pre-order bonuses on your first playthrough to make it simpler or to make it harder on yourself if you wanted to in true Stalker fashion, or if you just want to go get it, it's not going to just be in your inventory. You will have to complete a quest or go search out the coordinates that it gives you to get those items from the pre-order or from the higher level editions. Not a lot of new anomalies. Will we maybe have new mutants too? And the answer is, of course. Will there be more impactful decision systems like in CRPGs? Something you do in a quest can lead to, for example, destroying a faction, or smaller things like changing trader systems, giving you new dialogue options you wouldn't have otherwise. And the answer is for sure. So they're going to have more impact there. There was small impacts in Stalker games where, depending on who you talk to, what rep you got, and how you unlocked things, you would get new things in the game, but it's nowhere near like a CRPG level where you can cause complete shifts in the storyline or in the environment. But maybe that's going to be more of a different situation in Stalker 2. Will leveling up be a thing in this game? I know in SOC and CS based that off of increasing better equipment over time, but COP shook things up by offering perks earned through achievements, certain outcomes in the game's story. Will Stalker 2 replicate COP's system, Call of Pripyat, revert to the first system, or offer a new system, making Skiff a stronger Stalker? And the answer is no. It's not going to be progression-based, it's more going to be gear-based. Here's an interesting one. Will all stashes be marked on the map, or will there be some unmarked that we have to read descriptions or riddles to find? And the answer is some will be unmarked. Now, in most Stalker games, there were stashes that will exist no matter what, and you have to buy the information from traders or from other stalkers or members of other factions. They would offer you a price, you would pay them, and they would tell you where the cash was. And you could actually just go there and find it yourself. But it sounds like not only are there going to be stashes marked on your map, there's probably going to be stashes that you can unlock by talking to other characters or paying them off and getting that information. But it also sounds like there's going to be like descriptions of them that will be unmarked on your map that you will just have to find based on how they're described or based on what you hear in other areas that might be super secret. And hopefully this is how you get some of the higher level artifacts that make some big impact on your character. Here's a big one about the pre-download situation. So people have been very frustrated by the fact there won't be a preload, which means once the game becomes available in their region, they will then have to download it and get that done, which means that some people may not be able to play if they're waiting until like, 9, 10 p.m. and they're on their console, they're on their Xbox, Xbox and it takes 2 hours for them to get it done, they're gonna have to start the download and go to bed and then, you know, come back the next day after work or wait later into the night to get it. So they said lots of people are really disappointed that the pre-download will not be available on PC platforms, mostly for having so bad internet download speed. Can you currently state the reason why you made this unfortunate decision? And they respond with, we were considering our options, but unfortunately we couldn't find a way for PC pre-download to be possible. The best we could do is get it for Xbox. So Xbox will have pre-download. I actually thought it was going to be both that didn't. So Xbox will have pre-download, PC will not. And it is not favoritism, it is our attempt to have it at least somewhere so more stalkers can jump into the zone faster. I understand the frustration, it was a tough decision, but we felt it was a necessary one. Are there any form of reputation or rank system in this game? The answer is kind of. Rest is NDA. In all the Stalker games, you had a reputation you would build up from loner and different settings and different levels of, like, you know, if you were a merc or a stalker or that sort of thing, depending on how you progressed and how you talk to people, you would get rank ups that would have some impact. But the fact that they say rest is NDA means there probably will be new systems that haven't existed before that might be really impactful on the gameplay experience. Another great question is, can you sell damaged items? If something was completely broken, you've never really been able to sell it to a vendor to get any value back from it. So they respond with a very important cutoff here. Can you trade damaged guns with low durability? And they say you cannot sell extremely damaged guns under 40% durability. So once it goes under 40% durability, you won't be able to get any RU for it if you're selling it to other traders. So it might be worth keeping track of those things and also selling them right before they break completely and replace them with others. This one is probably my favorite. Are buildings and interior structures going to be more accessible? And if so, is it by a large margin? And the answer is yes, huge. So not only are we going to have a much bigger map to explore, but also the interior structures and the interior areas are going to be a lot more complicated, interwoven, and have a lot more space and interconnectivity as well, which will give you, I think, a lot more of an escape from Tarkov kind of feel, where you have a lot more angles to look at. And with the increase in graphics and presentation, I think it's going to create a really cool feeling for a game like Stalker. And I'll wrap it here with a really cool response as well. How much is different for stealth in Stalker 2 from the first 3 games? For example, is there anything like dedicated animations for stealth melee kills, and furthermore tools, weapons dedicated to stealth? And the response is there are dedicated animations. So it looks like we will be having stealth kills and specific animations that are dedicated to those actions if you want to be a little bit more sneaky beaky, cheeky breaky broski, sneaking around, taking enemies out, and playing around it that way. But that's most of the Q&A that they've replied to over the last couple days. Let me know what you think about Stalker 2 and the release in a couple days now here on Wednesday down below. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.